Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about Expedition 33, particularly its ending, and why I was so surprised to see general audiences respond so well to it. There will be huge spoilers for Expedition 33. I'm going to discuss, all the parts of its ending, really, dive deep into its themes and such, so definitely finish the game before watching. The biggest problem I've had with JRPGs in the last decade or even 2 decades has been the monotony of the narrative structure. I feel like JRPGs started out so strong in that golden era with things like Chrono Trigger and the Final Fantasies at the time, like 6, 7, 8 and 9, and I just feel like that era was so unique at the time and was forging these amazing stories, but I think there was a ceiling for that. I think you can only go so far with an established narrative that almost always follows the same structure. There is almost always a chosen one kind of protagonist that is either to be the one to dispel the evil or whatever it is, or there is generally a antagonistic figure that begins to embody God at the end, and a lot of it is about subverting fate and destiny. And I feel like those are really popular ideas in Japan in general. You see a lot of stories follow that narrative structure. And while I think it can be done extremely well and has been, and I'm sure you have some favorites out of more recent stuff too, but for me it just unfortunately became a bit tedious, and I dropped off of most modern JRPGs for that reason. And along comes Expedition 33, and they have this new set of eyes on the genre from French developers. Not AAA, not quite indie. I guess they would land in a AA sphere with the amount of money that went into this game and the size of the team. But right away when I saw the trailer for it, I knew that this had the potential to be something special. It looked bold, it looked inventive, it looked like it might follow the same tropes though. Based on what we were given, the game still looked like the traditional JRPG structure. And whether you want to consider it a JRPG or an FRPG because it's made by French developers, it doesn't really matter. Clearly, this game emulates the JRPG structure and then flips it on its head. And the flip that it manages is what's the reception to that flip, that narrative twist at the end, is really what surprised me the most, because I feel like a lot of people don't want something to end in such a kind of a way that provokes so much contemplation. I feel like unfortunately a lot of times we see reception to media. There will often be, I'm a big reviews kind of guy. I don't know why. I don't actually place so much stake in the number, but I will often look at reviews for any movie, TV show, game that I'm thinking of getting into. And one of the biggest things that I look for is the audience score versus the critic score on certain projects. Because one of the things I find the most fascinating is that really inventive and creative stories that subvert expectations and go in a direction that really challenges you often does not land with major audiences. You'll see very high critic scores, or even if it's not 90s, 80s, people really appreciated what this story did. And then you'll see maybe 60 out of the audience score. And I think it's super unfortunate. I'm generally optimistic about humanity, but I do think that a lot of us have become conditioned to just accept and even desire more plain stories that don't challenge you and don't take you to places that you've never been. And I think that idea rubs a lot of people the wrong way, unfortunately. So when Expedition 33 showed its major twist that you are not playing out the traditional JRPG, you beat God, you beat the Paintress, and then the story opens up into a whole new realm where it turns out you're in a story within a story. You are acting out a fantasy, really, that was created by Verso. And the thing is, the way that it plays out switches focus from this grand journey, this larger than life story, like most JRPGs are, and it instead hones in on this one family, and it asks you to really care about the inner workings of this family and really empathize with them. And I'm just so glad to see that so many people were able to do that. Were able to set aside their interest in this extremely grand adventure and just delve into this family and, you know, want to help them in the best way that the player can. I think the final decision in this game, I am someone that would say that I think there is a good ending and a bad ending in this game. I think that siding with Verso and destroying the painting, allowing the family to grieve and move forward, reuniting them at the end, you know, it's a very bittersweet ending. But I think it is clearly the better of the two, especially because I don't see people talk about this enough, but I think that the alternate ending, siding with Mael, is like one of the most nightmarish endings I've ever seen of anything. It is like, you know, Verso has become like a puppet that is being controlled by Mael, just so Mael can continue to live out a lie and, you know, continue to poison herself in the real world by existing within a fantasy forever. And those ideas that it grapples with at the end in terms of letting go of fantasy, accepting that, you know, fantasy can only get you so far. The fact that all of the impressions that were made throughout this game only matter to Mael and her character going forward once the painting is destroyed. It really trivializes the struggles of all the other characters. You know, Eskie, Monoko, Lune, CL, all of it is unfortunately taken from you, and none of it will have mattered to anyone other than Mael. You know, no one would even know that it existed. But the fact that all of that did make such an impression on Mael, you know, I think all of that allows her to progress as an individual, and it's become like this super meta narrative where you have helped this character heal and become a better person just through this story within a story. And like I said, I thought that when that twist came, a lot of people would have such an adverse reaction. I thought, you know, that's it. I was, you know, sold on a huge, larger than life story here with destiny and, you know, gods clashing. And unfortunately, what we get is, you know, this little kind of like slice of life story at the end of the day where just a family is going through grief and struggling to accept the death of a family member. And the fact that Expedition 3 turned that formula into a success for general audiences is something that I think has not been commended nearly enough. Because, like I said, you can look at that track record for so many things. I think another good example is Death Stranding. This one I haven't actually looked at the audience numbers versus critics lately, but I certainly have seen a lot of people talk about Death Stranding, saying that it's like pretentious art, you know, that's a big thing a lot of people jump to when the art really challenges you and does something very different, is that it's like pretentious, you know. And I think that people that grapple with those stories and come out really understanding their themes and, you know, throwing away their expectations and just letting the developer or creator of the project, you know, take the reins and take you somewhere so unexpected, I think you end up somewhere really magical compared to the endings of really predictable things. And so, like I was saying, modern JRPGs for me became so stale because generally they had this same exact progression, these same narrative points, and a lot of them end in the exact same way. And here is this story made by a completely new team of developers, and they managed to get a general audience of gamers who, by the way, I have so much faith in humanity. I am such an optimist. I'm you know, in school for social work. I think that there is so much potential in every human being, but I think that gamers have been conditioned especially to seek out more basic stories. And I think you see it so much in the bulk of our AAA games, the types of things you see at like the Game Awards over and over, or Summer Game Fest rather. You know, these games that dominate the space are not revolutionary most of the time in the stories that they're telling. You know, so much of it is just focused on technology and how good the game looks and how well it runs. And it's really cool to see that this team used minimal resources to create something, first of all, that somehow does look impeccable and manages to check all those boxes, but then takes it a step further and does something so unexpected that you could never see coming. So I think Expedition 33 is a really magical game. I hope that more and more people are inspired by what this game managed to do, because I see a lot of people talking about how it nailed its combat formula and how much modern JRPGs can take from that. But I hope more than anything that people are realizing what really drove this game to be such a wild success and made it land so heavily with so many people is its ability to subvert expectations and kind of funnel you into a scenario that you haven't seen in a game before, where this entire epic, this whole quest that you're on, ends up in some ways being trivialized overall by the characters fading, the entire world collapsing, and just a family is left and their struggle, and you have been an instrumental part in healing them and allowing them to move forward. And I think that's such a special thing. So that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the video, definitely subscribe or hit the bell or whatever people say. Thanks for watching. See you.